Hey guys, welcome back to Recreational Sniper. Right now, I've been working on something a little bit. We're working on the ULR 454 Casull project still, and I'm currently in the process of building a replacement stock for this rifle out of micarta. So it'll be, and this will give me some advantages. It'll be a lot harder, denser, and like stiffer than the wood, so a lot more rigid, and it will also add a little bit of weight to the rifle, so that will also benefit as far as recoil reduction, or at least it will help the rifle absorb more of the recoil and not transfer as much of it to me as the shooter. But in the meantime, I've come up with a solution of I will be able to get this rifle out to 1,000 yards before I have that part of the project finished, and before I start mounting the open sights, the extreme long range open sights. And with that, basically what I'm doing is I'm going to put another scope back on this rifle. The scope that I've chosen to put on this rifle is the SWFA fixed 10 power, which actually I've got the option of either using a 10 power or a 12 power, but I bought a 10 power one. I already had a 12 power, but a fixed 10 power scope, and it has a total adjustment range of 40 mils, so that will give me theoretically a usable adjustment range of 20 mils. So if we're looking at the projectile here that I'm working with, and this one's a little bit of a blim. It's got a, this is this is just a dummy cartridge that I made up, but this was one that was blimmed and the machine tip didn't fit quite perfectly inside in the bullet there. So this is, yeah, like I said, it's a blemished one, but this is basically the cartridge, the bullet and cartridge right here. This is what I've got going on. So this is a 300 grain ULD bullet from Alco Bullets. It's a .452 diameter, so it's a 45 caliber bullet. And basically this was actually designed for the modern smokeless muzzle loaders, the 45 caliber ones. But it is also the same diameter as for, the right bullet for a 454 Casull, being that it is .452 inches in diameter. So this bullet from Alco has a G1 ballistic coefficient of .485, and in the past I have confirmed that this ballistic coefficient is correct and accurate. So if we look here at JBM Ballistics and we set this up with our G1 ballistic coefficient .485, the bullet weight is 300 grains and the caliber is .452. The muzzle velocity that I'm running currently on average is 2,050 feet per second. So let's say with an average temperature 80 degrees outside, and we're going to set this up in mils. And like I said, with the scope on here, I'll be able to dial up to 20 mils, give or take. So if we go down here, we can look at 1,025 yards, we're at 19.5 mils. At 1,050 yards, we're at 20.3. So I will be able to dial up to at least 1,000 yards, maybe just a little past 1,000 yards with this bullet setup right here. And it's impressive that it's still carrying the amount of energy that it is out to that range, over 700 foot-pounds of energy, which is really good. At the muzzle, we're running about 2,800 foot-pounds of energy, so it's this pretty stout little round. Anyways, I've been looking at trying to figure out how I can get more power out of this round, get more juice out of this thing, a little more speed out of it. Maybe I really would like it at least a couple hundred more feet per second. If I can get to like 2250 or 2300, that would be amazing. But it kind of comes down to with how am I going to do that with this casing right here? How am I going to take this and increase the case capacity, basically increase the powder charge? Well, we do that one by seating these bullets very, very far out of the case. There's only about 1/8 of an inch of this bullet actually in the casing. And this right here will actually chamber in that rifle, no problem. I don't have any issues with the bullet coming into contact with the rifling or the lands or anything. So I can seat this bullet out way, way further than you normally would a bullet for this type of cartridge. And the reason why is because this is a pistol cartridge. This was designed to be shot in revolvers. And so basically your OAL is limited to the length of the cylinder that it was being fired from in a revolver. Well, in this Browning 1885 Highwall, I do not have that limitation. I can seat this bullet out basically as far as I want to. It will seat out even past the length here without actually engaging the forcing cone on the rifling. So I can seat it very, very far out, which gives me quite a bit more case capacity for gunpowder. So I've done some experiments and I've done loading and testing with this, and I've loaded this thing with this 300 grain bullet from started out probably around 30 grains, and at one point I ended up at about 36 grains of powder with a 300 grain bullet in a 454 Casull, and we're talking 36 grains of H110. Which sounds extremely way too much, and in a normal capacity it would be way too much, but being that I'm seating the bullet out further, giving it more space in the case for more powder, I'm actually not compressing the load, and it's giving the powder a little more room to go, But I've been doing a lot of thinking too. Is like, this is a 28-inch barrel on this rifle. So data that was originally designed 50 years ago for a cartridge that was originally designed for a pistol length barrel, say 6.5 inches or 7 or 8 inches. That data is really, if you think about it, it's not going to be optimal for a barrel that's 28 inches long. It's not going to be ideal for that situation. It is kind of amazing that, I can run out of a normal bullet, but being a 300 grain wide flat nose bullet in 454 Casull, if I run it normal length, normal powder charge, normal maximum powder charge for like 32 grains of powder or something, I'm running about 1700 feet per second with that out of a 6.5 inch revolver. And if I shoot that same load in this 28-inch barrel, it jumps up to a little over 2,000 feet per second. So I gain about 300 feet per second in that 28-inch barrel, which is cool. That's also, that's awesome, that's nice, but I think that it's also a little bit limiting. I think that maybe if I could use a little slower burning powder in there, maybe the pressure wouldn't spike as quickly, and I could actually get it to, it would continue burning, continue building pressure throughout a longer portion of the barrel length, and would actually result in higher velocity using a slower burning powder. So what I've decided to do is, originally I decided I was going to look at 460 Smith & Wesson Magnum loads because they got a larger case capacity. And since I'm seating the bullets out further in the 454 Casull, my case capacity in my, you know, in this scenario, my case capacity is similar to the 460, you know, in the public load data that the 460 has. So before we go any further, I am not recommending that anybody do this. What I'm looking at doing, what I'm, you know, kind of coming up with, but I just want to get that out there. Is this is in no way, shape, or form a recommendation or a guide to how you should do these things. Okay, so keep that in mind. This is extremely experimental what we're walking into here. Trying to get the maximum performance out of this 454 Casull. Alright, so outside of the 460 Magnum, and the reason why I've decided to get away from it, looking at the load data for it, is because, again, it is a pistol cartridge. It was designed around being shot out of a shorter barrel, say around 10-inch barrel, or, you know, give or take. So what other .45 caliber cartridges are out there that are being fired typically in rifle length barrels? 20, 22, 23, you know, 24, 26-inch barrels. Well, there's one that comes to mind, and it is the 4570 Government. So now there's a huge fundamental difference between a 4570 and a cartridge like the 454 Casull, and that is operating pressures. For the 4570, for a long time, that originally it was a black powder cartridge, so all the original load data out there, the majority of it was centered around black powder pressures. And as reloaders know, that black powder does not it just does not produce the same pressure that modern smokeless gunpowder does. So for these original cartridges, a lot of the pressures were pretty low. They were, you know, 30,000 psi, or, you know, less than that even in a lot of cases. Sometimes a little higher, but for the most part, like 30,000 psi. The 454 Casull, from the get-go, from the start, when Dick Casull designed this cartridge, it was extremely high pressured. At the time, it was the highest pressured handgun cartridge in the world, and it actually still is. And the only cartridge that ties with it, like, is the 460 Smith & Wesson Magnum. It is also the same operating pressure. The only reason why you get more speed out of the 460 is because it's got a little bigger case capacity, so you get a little more powder in there running the same pressure. You get a little more speed. So this one, the 454 Casull, at the time, the maximum operating pressure that was adopted by the SAMI specs is 65,000 psi, so more than twice that of the original 4570 loads. So even though the 4570 has a much bigger case capacity and can hold a lot more powder, the pressure is only half as much, or even less than half as much. So when you actually look at that load data for 4570 versus the 454 Casull, and what I've seen it do out of my 28-inch barrel in my Browning, the 454 will rival that 4570, and in most cases it overpowers it. It actually will send a heavier bullet faster downrange. But that's because of the way it was designed to be able to handle much higher pressures. So I'm not taking anything away from the 4570, it's just the way it is. Now, in modern times, with newer rifles, you've got these newer updated rifles out there with updated steel and actions and stuff, and so the 4570 pressures have actually come up quite a bit. So you get some load data these days where that's acceptable for like these Marlins, or like the new Ruger made Marlin, or 1895s and stuff. It's more acceptable to run 40,000 to 45,000 psi through those rifles in a 4570 cartridge, which allows you to really start pushing these bullets out there. Now you're getting your 300 grain bullets up there, 2,300, 2,400 feet per second sometimes. So we're going to take a look at some of that load data. Alright, so this is load data for a 300 grain bullet in a 4570, and this is manufacturer published load data. Shooter's Reference is a really fantastic website to find all this information out on if you're having trouble finding the information you're looking for. And then, so here you got your 300 grain bullet on the side. Obviously I just selected the 300 grain, and we're looking at the different powders they are using. And really we're just looking for the type of powder that they're using as potentially something that we're going to use and test in the 454 Casull, because this powder that they're using for the 4570 is optimized for a rifle length barrel. Okay, and you can go over here and say their test barrel from Hodgdon is 24 inches. We're running a 28 inch barrel, so it's going to be a little bit different, but 24 inches is what this data is optimized for. Whereas with 454 Casull data, if you go and look at it over here with a 300 grain bullet, the optimized barrel length that all of this data is loaded for is 9.4 inches, so like a 9.5 inch barrel. Okay, so we're going to go back over here and take a look at this. I'm going down through here. I have some LT30 powder, but as you can see, it's still showing those lighter 28,000, 30,000 psi loads. So it's not really showing you the real potential of this stuff in a 24 inch barrel. So even with like 52 grains of powder, we're still only running, a little over 2,000 feet per second in a 24 inch barrel with a 300 grain, and that's a lot of powder. For a comparison with the H110 and that 300 grain bullet in the 28 inch barrel, I'm running 32 grains of powder, 32.5 grains of powder, and I'm getting about 2,050 feet per second with a 300 grain bullet. So same speed with the same weight bullet with about 20 grains less powder in the 454 Casull, but I'm also have the capacity, I don't have a way of pressure testing, but that load could be running in the 60,000 psi range, or 55 to 60,000 psi range, and I've still got some room to go. Could go up to 65,000 psi, like I've said. So this is something that, obviously they have not pushed this load any higher into that, they haven't gone up to 40,000 or 50,000 psi with that powder, so there's really not much to go on there. So I'm going to keep going down through here. I've got some H322. Now you see here they are at 32,600 CUP, and this is like copper units of pressure. It's a little different than PSI, but not a whole lot different. It's pretty similar. Now they are showing that this is a compressed load at 63 grains of powder, and they're getting 2,252 feet per second. So now we're starting to see something interesting here. Is we're at 2252. Now let's see what copper units of pressure converted to PSI is. So here we go. What did we say it was? 32,600. So we're gonna go 32,600. And even there, see, look at that. We're 31,519.6 psi, so not anywhere close to 454 Casull pressures, not even halfway to the max. So this could have, you know, some room for improvement here. So if we keep going down through here, the next powder on this list that I see that I know I've got is some IMR 4166, and we're at 37,200. So almost, you know, we're getting close to 40,000 psi. Not quite there, but at 64 grains of powder. But I know I've got enough of this that I can actually do some testing with. I don't have very much of H322 left, so this 4166 is probably what I'm going to attempt to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit more research and see what the difference in actual physical case capacity of the 4570 cartridge versus the 454 Casull. So basically I've already done that. The 4570 case will, an empty casing will hold 81.1 grains of water, okay? And the 454 Casull will hold 45.5 grains of water. So there's a big difference in case, you know, internal capacity. So what I'm doing here is actually, let's see, we can just make a note. 4570 is 81.1 grains. 454 Casull is 45 point, what did I say it was? 45.5 grains. Okay, so we're going to go to a calculator here. I'm going to take 45.5, multiply that. Or wait, sorry guys. We're going to divide that by 81.1. And we're at 0.56, and we can multiply that by 100. So we get a difference of 56.1%. Okay, so it's 56.1. Sorry, 56.1%. The 454 Casull case has 56.1% of the capacity of the 4570 case. Okay. So let's go back over here and look at this load data, and their maximum load data for that 4166 is 64 grains. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, clear that. We're going to take 64 grains, so we're going to multiply that by our 56.1%. So 64 times 0.561, and that's 30, sorry guys, that's 35.9 grains of powder. Okay. .9 grains. So proportionally, I should be able to run 35.9 grains of powder in the 454 Casull case of the 4166, and it still have relatively low pressures. So my idea, my plan is, for testing purposes, I'm going to start at 30 grains of powder with this 4166. I'm going to start at 30 grains and see what happens with a 300 grain bullet, and then go up from there. So yeah, this is kind of, you know, some complicated stuff here. I know that this seems a little bit crazy, but if you really think about it, it makes sense that we would start actually using a powder that's optimized for actually being shot in longer barrels because I'm shooting a cartridge with a longer barrel, and stop using the load data for a pistol cartridge and start using a load data that's more optimized for longer barrels, because it doesn't make sense if I'm using a pistol, pistol load data that's optimized for a 10-inch barrel versus, and I'm shooting that in a 28-inch barrel, expecting it to, perform better than it does. It doesn't make sense that it would work out that way. It just doesn't. So this is basically what I'm doing. As you can see, the math kind of helps a little bit, and I think I will be pretty safe to do this, because again, their pressure that they are running, even at that load data, at that 64 grains of powder, they're still only around 37,200 psi. And like I said before, the 454 Casull is designed to be able to run up to 65,000 psi. So I think I will be able to run this powder no problem, especially if I keep, start out and keep it proportional, like I'm planning on doing with the math that I've got going on right now. Anyways, I just wanted to take you guys down the rabbit hole a little further and show you exactly what kind of I've got going on, where, how deep this is getting as far as experimental stuff goes. So I'm planning on maybe this weekend working up some loads, some test loads with this IMR 4166 powder. I know that it's kind of a bummer, but I'm pretty sure that IMR does not make these powders anymore. The Enduron line of powders, I'm pretty sure that they killed those. I'm not 100% sure, but I have not seen them in a while, and I've seen a lot of reports of people saying that they're probably discontinued. So that's going to be one of those things that, well, it's going to suck. I'm going to run out of this powder probably about the time that I get the load figured out, but that's just how it goes, especially these days. So anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time in the next video.